I'm Jordan Grimes, and welcome to The District, a brand new St. Louis Public Schools podcast giving you the inside information on everything happening at SLPS.
We have old buildings that have been around since the early 1900s.
On this episode of The District, we're sitting down with Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kelvin R. Adams, and Board of Education President Matt Davis to discuss Proposition S. Proposition S is a $160 million, no tax rate increase bond issue that will be on the August 2nd ballot. The money will be aimed at building maintenance, upkeep, and upgrades. This includes everything from bathrooms and plumbing to roofing, HVAC, and so much more. But why ask for the money now? What schools will be impacted? And what makes this money different from the federal funds we've been hearing about? All these questions and many more will be answered today. Joining me today, we have Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kelvin R. Adams, and the President of the Board of Education, Mr. Matt Davis. Gentlemen, thank you for taking time out to speak to me and the SLPS community. We're here to talk about Proposition S. I'm going to ask both, what is exactly Proposition S?
I'll let the board president go first.
Well, first of all, thanks, Jordan. I'm always thrilled to talk about Proposition S. It's something that I think is incredibly important. While it may be kind of boring because you're talking about school funding, which can be very complex, and you're talking about bond issues, which could really be even more complex, what's really important is what we're going to use that money for. And that's investing in our school buildings to make safe, happy, beautiful, lovely places for our kids to learn every day. So there's a couple of ways that school districts receive funding. One of the ways that statutes allow is to borrow money, and that requires voter approval. But because of the timing of this, we're able to do it in a way where it's going to be no tax increase to the voters, and that's really important.
Very important.
So for me, Proposition S is an opportunity, as the board president's indicated, to really do some work in buildings that really is needed. That work is needed because we have old buildings that have been around since the early 1900s. And so as a result of using these dollars, we get an opportunity to increase technology, to repair roofs, to deal with ADA issues that might be impacting students in our buildings. And so as opposed to necessarily building brand new buildings, we have an opportunity to renovate buildings, to put them in the best condition to support students.
Okay. So I guess that leads me into my first question. Who is impacted or who will benefit the most from Proposition S?
Well, from my perspective, obviously our clients, students, and their parents, quite frankly, because they will have an opportunity to have students in more state-of-the-art buildings, and the safety and security issues that sometimes impact old buildings can also be addressed. The ADA issues, elevators. We had complaints 2 years ago of some buildings not having elevators. That's a real issue for us. And so it gives us an opportunity to take and renovate buildings that are old buildings. This city is incredibly concerned about making sure that the culture of the city remains the same in terms of how they look at buildings. So it gives us an opportunity to increase those buildings to be state-of-the-art buildings, and also to deal with some of the safety and concerns that happen in some of our buildings.
And our staff. I mean, you've got to think St. Louis Public Schools is the third largest employer in the city. Most of those employees are in these buildings every day. So we always know that what the kids are doing with the classrooms. They need the smart boards, they need nice bathrooms, they need playground equipment. But, this is the workplace for a large amount of the workforce in the city. And so it's very important about them. And I also want to mention that one of the things that's going to be really important is this is actually going to be an economy builder in the city of St. Louis. This is going to be spending money in construction jobs, trade jobs that are going to be using to help do this as well. So it's a really big deal for everybody in the city, the entire community.
For sure, and I appreciate you guys' answers on those. Can you talk to me about what types of projects are going to be addressed first should this bond issue pass?
Well, there are multiple projects, obviously, that old buildings need. The envelope, those are the roofs. Those are things that people would not necessarily look to see. Obviously, we have buildings that need some construction around technology, the use of technology in a greater way. I talked about the ADA issues, elevators, anything that would make it safer for students to be in our buildings But those are just some of the projects, and those projects are aligned to what we've done in the past. We normally put out a request for proposal. We look at what those buildings might need as a result of the request for proposal, and then those are the kinds of things that we will be asking our contractors to repair or update in our buildings.
I talk about this probably way too much, but I've got two daughters that go to SLPS and all of their friends, and if you ask them what needs to be fixed in their building, they talk about the bathrooms. And, they all go to the older buildings, so not any of these new ones. And once you get older and you're in the third floor and you try to use those third floor restrooms in an Ittner building or a Milligan building, they were not built for today. Yeah. And you take the fact that you also have kids for the last 12 years, going in and using these, using the bathrooms, using the water fountains, using the stairs. It is some serious wear and tear on that stuff. So it's just really a good, fiscally responsible way for us to go and make sure that we are keeping up not only just the basic maintenance, but also modernizing things.
For sure. Mr. Davis?
And one of the things I just want to add to what Mr. Davis indicated is we just came through a pandemic, and HVAC was a big, big issue in terms of quality air. It gives us an opportunity to address that. We've gotten several concerns around fences, and so it gives us an opportunity to address lead in fences. While we removed a lot of lead, or all lead in all buildings that are pre-K through grade second, there's still other lead paint that needs to be remediated in buildings as well. So it gives us an opportunity to look at this from a holistic perspective, to look at every single thing that needs to be done. We have over $300 million of unmet needs in all of our buildings. This gives us an opportunity to address many of those needs in a way that we think will satisfy what the voters have asked us to do, and also, as Mr. Davis has indicated, to show the community that we care greatly about what happens to our buildings and to our kids as well. And so this is a real great opportunity to utilize these dollars in a way that will, I think, satisfy everyone in the community.
Sure. Can you talk to the fact, I believe it was the last time SLPS even introduced a bond issue was 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk to why it's been so long that we've even requested something like this from the voters?
Well, I think in 2010 it was the first time that it had been done in a very long time. Some 12 years later, we're coming back because we know that a lot of the needs were not all met, similar to what's going to happen this time, because as time passes, there's deterioration that takes place in all of our buildings. And so this is a way to get those buildings up. I think also that Mr. Davis has already indicated this is a no tax increase. So we were always cognizant of the fact that we did not want the voters to raise additional dollars, but to keep the taxes in a way that they were before. So we didn't do it. We did it 10 years ago because we thought it was the appropriate time to do so, and we think it's the appropriate time to do so again. And quite frankly, over the last 12 years, the needs have increased. COVID has taught us all, as I've already said before, HVAC is a major, major, major issue. And so we just have to make sure that we are addressing the air quality in our buildings. And what comes with that is the technology and all of the other kinds of things. As I said before, the envelope, windows, lead, all of those kinds of things that need to be addressed.
Sure. One of the I guess negative things that COVID has also brought, or would be this disruption to supply lines and inflation. Can you talk to that in relation to getting work done, getting projects done in our buildings?
I'll let Mr. Davis go first.
So this is one of the difficulties in explaining how the money is going to be spent, because a lot of times you look at school districts who raise money for a specific building project. They're going to build a new high school, they're going to build a new gym, they're going to build a new track. And so there's one thing that they're focusing on. For what we're doing across all of our buildings, we're going to go and try to start addressing in a major way that $300 million in projects that we need to do. So one of the things that we need to do when we do that is to be very much fiscally responsible. So the projects are going to go out to bid through our procurement process and make sure that we're making the biggest bang for our buck. So it's very possible that you could sit there and say, okay, well, we want to replace this item in the schools, but it goes out to bid, and it's one of those things where, well, the prices are twice as high as they used to be. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to wait a year to get the items, and then there's nobody left to install it. I mean, we have a fence at home that at the beginning of the pandemic, part of it fell down. We went to go get it to get bids, and they were twice as high as they used to be because of lumber shortages. So we're going to take that all into account as we go along. The good news, I guess, is there's plenty of projects to spread the money around. And as the bond goes, it's not like you get a check for $160 million and you can start going spending it. I mean, it's going to be over time. So we'll be able to address that and move those projects around to make sure that the taxpayers' interests are protected, because that's really our number one job in these situations as a board, is to make sure that we're being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can.
And in addition to what Mr. Davis has already indicated, we have a window of time to do this, and so in 2010 it took us about 5 to 6 years to actually spend down the $150 million. As he already indicated as well, I was with some colleagues in Boston last week who have asked and received bond money, but the capacity of spending is at about 80% as opposed to what they originally thought, because the prices have gone up, because they're not able to get contractors for certain kinds of things. So we're going to be strategic, as Mr. Davis has indicated. The great thing, and I think he articulated it really well, is that we have multiple projects. So we have the ability to be nimble in terms of what we get done based upon what supplies are able to come in and what the cost might be. But we have a window of time, about 5 years, to look to spend these funds as we did in 2010.
One thing that was I want to say a mainstay at some of the board meetings late last year coming into this year were ESSER funds. Can you talk to why ESSER funds either can or cannot be used when it comes to some of the projects we're talking about?
So the ESSER funds, quite frankly, were designated for improved academic achievement as a result of what happened with the pandemic. So those funds are really being used to address issues like tutoring, supplies and materials that students need to catch up or to get caught up as a result of being out of school for the last 2 years. We are able to leverage some of those dollars as it relates to addressing some of the facility issues as it relates to air quality. But as you can already understand, that we have multiple concerns in that area as it relates to HVAC. So some of the dollars will be used, a small portion of those dollars, comparatively speaking, will be used to address some facility needs, but those facility needs are going to be directly aligned to increasing academic achievement. A bathroom is not directly aligned to increasing academic achievement. Technology is, however, and so we can use those dollars for technology, for computers, for hotspots, and all of those kinds of things, but not for bathrooms, not for roofs. And so the bond money will give us the ability to use the dollars to address the envelope of that building that really supports kids coming to school and being in school on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think one way to think of it is we had this $300 million problem list that we needed to address, and the pandemic just added on to the problem list. So there's money available to help the pandemic related problems, but we're still going to have the underlying long-term issues in investing in our buildings and really investing in our kids. I mean, it's a great opportunity. I mean, it's something really unprecedented that we're going to have this ability to invest all of these things to really make a difference.
Another funding question comes from the decision to consolidate 7 schools at the beginning of last school year. Were there any funds saved from the consolidation of those schools that will be used in these projects coming up?
So those dollars that we indicated to the public will be that will be saved as a result of the consolidation of buildings. We're going to be used for the following things: nurses, full-time nurses in every building, social workers, full-time social workers, part-time social workers in every building, reading teachers in all of our elementary schools, full-time security in all of our schools, and we have committed to and done all of those things. The challenge has been obviously capacity, getting people to be hired to fill those positions, but the funding is there to do that. So we've made a commitment to do some things that we have, quite frankly, filled. The challenge has been a challenge of staffing across the entire country as it relates to nurses, staffing as it relates to teachers across the entire country, and so reading teachers were impacted by that. But for the most part, we've done all of the things that we said we were going to do as it relates to those dollars that were saved from that, and we will continue to do that. Those are earmarked in our budget moving forward. There are funds available to address all of the things that we said we were going to do when those schools were closed.
All right. I think a question that's been going around, parents and students alike, they want to know what's going to happen at my school? So is there a way that we can begin to have those conversations about the work that's going to be done at particular schools, or are we too far off from that right now?
So what we are talking about, and making a commitment as a board, is to make sure that it's as transparent as possible. And this happened last time. There was an oversight committee that represented the community that would get regular updates about what has been identified and then how that has been fulfilled. And you may remember, a lot of people may remember, in front of schools when they did the last bond, there was always a sign with check marks. And I know at my kids' school, I was very eager to watch those things get checked off. And if they weren't, we might have sent some emails like, hey, one of these windows getting replaced and stuff like that. And so I'm all for that. I mean, I think that's great. And, we're, as an elected board, we're getting input all the time. As a parent, I'm getting input all the time on what needs to happen. Like I said, we've identified that $300 million list. And so every school is going to see some impact on it, and it's going to be something that has been probably a little bit overdue, and they're going to really see how that's been invested. But the transparency part is always something that's going to be key to this Board of Education, and working with the community to make sure they see exactly where that money's going.
Will voters have a say in how any funds are used?
The best way for voters to have a say is to vote. And so you vote for your Board of Election, your Board of Education members. You can contact us. We have open meetings once a month where you can come and speak to us. We have emails that you can address us all the time. I don't ever feel like I'm not accessible, and I know my fellow board members feel the same way as well. But that's sort of how this system works. We're here to represent the community on the Board of Education, and so we're the best conduit to if you have concerns about the school district, or you have certain things that you think that you need to be addressed. And I can give you a great example of this. Dr. Adams mentioned the lead fences, the lead paint on the fences. This was an issue that was kind of unseen because we have all of these, and they're a lot of them are pretty old. These chain link fences around the schools. It was literally a parent that went and tested because they saw some paint chipping off, and got a Home Depot test and raised that to the district. And as a result, we've been working on getting that. We actually then worked with local representatives who also were contacted, and the legislature put $800,000 to help us remediate those fences. Now, it's a matching funds, and $800,000 doesn't cover all the fences. But that's a great example of that was a community-oriented issue that was raised. And now, we didn't turn on a dime and fix all that because it was a big major problem. But we've been working on that consistently, at least since the day I've been on the board. So that's just one example.
Sure, I appreciate that. Here's a question. What if Proposition S doesn't pass? Where do we go from there?
Proposition S is an opportunity for the voters to be supportive of their community, the kids, the parents, and the teachers who work diligently every day through the pandemic to make this happen. I have a lot of confidence in the voters in the city of St. Louis, and so I have no unbelief, if you will, that they're not going to be supported. So it's not something, quite frankly, I've ever thought about. In 2010, the voters supported the district. In 2015, they supported the district as well, and I highly expect that they'll do the same if we give them the right information and include them in the process. And so this is a community that's deeply committed around their kids, and I just feel strongly that they're going to do that. So in my mind, I'm not even thinking about the voters not being supportive, because I think we've given them enough reasons based on what happened in 2010 to be transparent that every project we said we were going to complete, we completed. Everything that we said we were going to do in terms of a sign out front with a checklist, in terms of a committee that would be an oversight committee. And so we've done the right kinds of things to show the community that we care about our kids, and we believe that they're going to do the same thing. And from a district perspective, from an administrative perspective, I feel confident that this board is leading in a way that they give parents an opportunity to voice their concerns, to raise their issues, such that there's not a reason for them not to be supportive of this effort.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it as well, and I think that there's sort of a number of factors. One, I know that this community supports our schools. I absolutely know it. I feel it everywhere I go. And sometimes you'll hear like negativity about the school district. I don't feel it from the community. If you go and ask them for stuff, they're like, how can I help? And that is across the board. And I also want to give credit to the administration about how we've gone about positioning ourselves for this bond, because it's a no tax increase bond, and that is really important. That shows a great deal of fiscal responsibility on the part of the district, because there's room that we could have raised taxes for a bond. We could have increased the tax levy for the bond and asked voters to do it that way. But we've intentionally been very cognizant of the fact that taxes need to remain the same, and this is an ability for us to raise money without increasing those taxes. And you see historically, when you present all of those factors to the voters in the city of St. Louis, they're very supportive about investing in their community.
All right, we're going on a lot of information. I just want to give you both an opportunity to say anything else regarding Prop S. What else do the voters need to know about Prop S?
I would say the voters need to know first and foremost that their vote is a vote to support individual kids, to provide them with the supplies and materials that they need to be successful in terms of the infrastructure of their school buildings. And as I've already indicated before, I have every confidence in this community that they will come to the polls on August the 2nd to reaffirm the work that has been done, the fact that our students need to be in buildings equal to students in buildings all across this country. Other districts do this on a regular basis, every 5 years, quite frankly, and we have gone to the voters in 2010 and 2012 because we believe that we want to be fiscally responsible, as the board president has indicated, in a way that doesn't mean that persons will be increasing any of their taxes to support our schools.
Yeah, if you think about, first of all, so many of our schools are over 100 years old. We really haven't built a new school for the last 20 years. But you also need to think about how much education has changed in the last 10 years, not let alone the last 2 years. It always, when I go into a school building, it always just sort of still startles me that they're not writing on a blackboard with chalk. There's these amazing things with smartboards. I mean, they're amazing. The way that it's able to expand the learning opportunities for kids, technology that's present in the buildings. We also have to be very much certain that we take these old buildings that were built for a very different society and make sure that they are secure for the society that we live in today, because that is a very real thing. Definitely. And that's definitely a concern. They weren't concerned with the same things we were 100 years ago. And the buildings, if you go out and look at new school buildings, they're built very differently in terms of how you access them than they are now. And that's something that we always need to invest in, but in particular these days too. And it's just going to, you're going to see it both inside the building and outside the building. It's going to be a point of pride for the community to see these investments. They're going to see the playgrounds get improved. They're going to see the bricks on the outside if there's tuck pointing issues or things like that get fixed. And most of these buildings are the center points of their neighborhoods when they were built. And so it's going to be an investment that everybody's going to be able to see. And again, it's not going to raise anybody's taxes, and we're going to be very transparent in how the money's spent. And I'm very confident that the city's going to come and support us.
I think that's a great way to end right there. I want to thank you both for joining me. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody listening learned a lot as well. As a reminder, August 2nd is Election Day in the city of St. Louis. Please go out and vote, and we'll see you next time.